Well, Trump just keeps winning.
How dare you?
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Greta. Maybe you can have a meeting at the UN about that. Well, as you know, there were some elections that took place last night, and of course, once again, the Democratic narrative was this would be a bellwether on Donald Trump. This would be a referendum on how Americans really feel about impeaching him. And so the two places they were watching were, of course, the gubernatorial races in Mississippi and in Kentucky. Now, Mississippi made a clean sweep of draining the swamp. But Kentucky, normally a very red state, the gubernatorial contest is in question right now. Belvin is refusing to concede to the Democratic challenger. And of course, the Democratic narrative, the spin on this, of course, is that, see, the hold that Donald Trump has, because that was a state he carried by, what was it, like 30 points? The hold that Donald Trump had, it's over. He's done. This is definitely a sign that 2020 is not going to be good for him or Republicans. To which I would like to respond with the following deeply well thought out, articulated, reasoned argument to that asinine statement.
How dare you?
No, I'm sorry. Well, no, really, I'm not sorry. That said, Matt Bevin has refused to concede the election at this point, and he's weighing his options. Now, let's be really clear about this, and you aren't going to get this from the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media. Bevin had problems going into this election. He pulled in President Trump, at the last hour to try to throw that Hail Mary. And, it was one of those deals that the president is not a miracle worker. The candidates themselves have to be strong individuals. They have to have the goods. They have to be able to produce. And, Donald Trump can only go in and do just so much. But again, we still see evident sign that the president is definitely winning. He went to Tupelo, Mississippi on Friday night and had literally a rockin' crowd there in the birthplace of Elvis, and certainly the Mississippi elections reflect that. And I do believe that the Kentucky reflection of Trump's influence is definitely evident. Why do I say that? Because Daniel Cameron is the first Republican elected to be the state's attorney general in over 70 years. Let that sink in. First Republican to that post in 70 years. And he's the very first African American, the very first black individual to ever serve in that capacity. Oh, wait, a black conservative? A black Republican? A black conservative Republican who likes Donald Trump and he got elected easily. Now, normally, especially on the state level like that, if you're having a gubernatorial race, if the top of the ticket doesn't do well, the bottom of the ticket is done. And here in Kentucky, it's the exact opposite. The bottom half of the ticket did very well. In fact, there were some seats within Kentucky that were supposed to be flipped, and it didn't happen. And so, despite their best efforts to try to spin this on Airport Terminal TV, otherwise known as CNN, PMSNBC, Faux Pas News, formerly known as Fox News, and the rest of the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media, it was a very, very good night for Donald Trump. More evident sign of his strength, more evident sign that the polling data that we're seeing that most Americans want him impeached and gone is a bunch of BS crapola. And again, those are fake polls. I'm going to say it again, fake polls. That said, another evident sign that the president is winning Adam Schiff for brains has had to actually concede that yes, we will now have public hearings. In a Wednesday morning tweet, Adam Schiff put out the fact that there will be public hearings which will begin next week. Even despite their best efforts with their controlled, limited transcript, cherry-picking certain portions to release to the media, to release to the American people, hoping that would dissuade and convince everyone that why we are being above board down in the secret bunker and everything the Republicans are saying is lying. These witnesses, they're crucifying Trump. Even the mainstream media and outlets like the Washington Post and the New York Times have had to kind of concede, no, even though Adam Schiff handpicked, cherry-picked what he wanted released in transcript form, it still isn't coming anywhere near to the claims that Schiff and Nancy Botox Pelosi are making. So the public hearings, it's only going to get even better and stronger for the president, and especially when people like Jim Jordan get to start asking questions on TV. And I hope Adam Schiff tries to shut him down. I hope Adam Schiff tries to use his leverage to even tell witnesses not to answer. I want to see that on television so the American people understand just how absolutely corrupt this entire process is. That said, the fact that Adam Schiff has now had to open this up to complete public hearings is another sign that Trump is winning. And I'll tell you what's going to happen now. Oh, Hunter Biden, come out wherever you are and bring your daddy Joe Biden with you. This is going to become an issue now. Even though Adam Schiff and the media have tried to say continually, there is absolutely no insinuation of any kind that Joe Biden acted illegally. There's no evidence of such. GOP congressmen are now going to have TV cameras to make the case to the point Adam Schiff isn't going to have a choice. He's going to have to call them in as, quote, rebuttal witnesses. And again, stop and think about this. For crying out loud, a guy that had absolutely zero experience in the energy industry, who had just been kicked out of the Navy for dealing drugs, should have been in jail, but because of who his daddy was, he simply got a dishonorable discharge. And then all of a sudden, he's making upwards of $50,000 a month, and you have Joe Biden bragging about the fact that he used his power and influence as the vice president to tell Ukraine, you either fire this prosecutor or you're not getting your $1 billion in aid. You got 6 hours. Oh, and that prosecutor happened to be investigating Hunter Biden and the company that Hunter worked for and was receiving $50,000 plus a month. And there's no pay to play there. There's no quid pro quo there. Give me a break. And once the American people can see Hunter and Joe being grilled by the likes of Jim Jordan on camera, it's all over but the crying. And once again, President Trump, in his relentlessness on Twitter, in his rallies, in press conferences, he has made this happen. Once again, evident sign he's winning.
How dare you?
A week ago, President Trump went to the city of Chicago for the National Police Chiefs Convention. And, amazing, Eddie Johnson didn't show up. Police Chief of Chicago didn't show up. President Trump took him to task for that.
But there is one person that's not here today. We're in Chicago. I said, where is he? I want to talk to him. In fact, more than anyone else, this person should be here because maybe he could learn something. And that's the superintendent of Chicago Police, Eddie Johnson. A few days ago, Johnson said, quote, "The values of the people of Chicago are more important than anything President Trump would have to say." I don't think so, because that's a very insulting statement after all I've done for the police, and I've done more than any other president's ever done for the police. Over 100 years we can prove it, but probably from the beginning. And here's a man that could not bother to show up for a meeting of police chiefs, most respected people in the country, in his hometown, and with the President of the United States. And you know why? It's because he's not doing his job. Last year, 565 people were murdered in Chicago. Since Eddie Johnson has been police chief, more than 1,500 people have been murdered in Chicago, and 13,067 people have been shot. During the first weekend of August 2019, 7 people were murdered and 52 were wounded in 32 shootings in Chicago. And recently they had 78 shootings over a weekend spree and 3 people killed. And Chicago has the toughest gun laws in the United States.
Immediately, he was given cover by the mayor, and he said that he wasn't going to go because he had better things to do with his time than listen to a hater and a bigot and a guy like Trump because he doesn't support his ICE and immigration policies. But yet, Chicago police themselves, they didn't give him cover. And of course, it's become a big problem over the fact that, well, it looks like he was intoxicated one night and sleeping it off along the road, and he got to just drive himself home rather than be arrested. And who brought all this to light and made it happen? Come on, you can say it. Donald Trump. And so what does that mean? Well, Eddie Johnson, who just a couple of days ago said, you know what, he's thinking about maybe, retiring and hanging it up at the end of the year or next year. Now, apparently, the announcement of his retirement is imminent. That means he's been forced to resign. Bye-bye, Eddie. Bye. Because, again, it was the president who pointed out his abysmal record when it came to murders and violence within the city of Chicago.
Chicago is, unfortunately, the worst sanctuary city in America. Chicago protects criminals at a level few could even imagine. Last year in Cook County alone, ICE asked local law enforcement people to please, pretty please, we beg you, we'll do anything necessary to stop crime. We want to stop crime. Please detain 1,162 people, please. But in each case, the detainer was denied. And Eddie Johnson wants to talk about values. No. People like Johnson put criminals and illegal aliens before the citizens of Chicago. And those are his values. And frankly, those values to me are a disgrace. I will never put the needs of illegal criminals before I put the needs of law-abiding citizens. It's very simple to me. 565 people were murdered last year. And it's a shame. And I want Eddie Johnson to change his values and change them fast.
Well, there goes the president, just pointing out the obvious again.
How dare you?
Sorry, Greta, but you and the rest of the libloons don't get the opportunity anymore to keep spinning the narrative your way. Sorry. And again, as a pastor, may I just share the truth? shall set you free. And Donald Trump is winning. And I don't care what Mr. Magoo, the morning schmuck over there at Joe Scarborough with his, Mr. Magoo glasses trying to look smart. I don't care what the rest of the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media tries to say about the elections of last night. Trump is winning. Winning. And where he goes, he bolsters the ticket. Barack Obama, in the so-called height of his popularity, he was a death sentence when he campaigned for other Democratic candidates. People love Donald Trump. The economy is strong. He's doing a great job. Go ahead and say it. 4 more years. And I'm going to say it, Donald Trump, 2020 and beyond.
How dare you!
Hey, thanks so much for watching today's rant. I really do appreciate that. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and a like on this video. And please make sure that you're a subscriber to the channel and smack the bell for notification of my next rant.